Better jobs, empowering students and family in education, and fiscal responsibility. Welcome to the NHC GOP podcast. I'm Rule Sample with our very special guest, North Carolina House Majority Leader John Bell. John, how are you this morning, sir?
Yeah, it's great to be with you. I've looked forward to this, and so glad we get a chance to have a conversation.
We've been looking forward to this for a long time. I'm going to jump right into it, and let's get a big thing out of the way because Mike Lee's had to talk about it. Other people have been talking about it ever since the Supreme Court decided on Roe v. Wade and sent this matter back to the states. We've been talking and had to address the very important issue of abortion. We have been told over and over again that Republicans in North Carolina want to ban abortion outright. Let's get you on the record, John. What are the Republicans doing here in North Carolina?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you, when the Roe v. Wade decision came out, at no point in time was there ever a secret meeting or a secret caucus and a bill put forward that said this is what we're going to do. And so the commercials you're seeing, the agenda that's being pushed, not just at the in New Hanover County at the state level, but also at the national level, is completely false. We frankly have not had the discussion within our caucus. And so we have members that are on very different islands on this issue. It's a personal and emotional issue for a lot of our members. And it will be one that I'm sure that we'll discuss when we come in January. But right now, we have no agenda to ban abortion. We have no agenda to put this bill where we're going to lock people up, which is completely false. And the ads that have been ran down there, there's nothing like that being done. Our folks are focused on winning elections. And then once we come in the new session in January, we'll have a discussion and we'll find a common sense solution that hopefully both sides of the aisle will be able to work with and agree upon as we move forward. And it hurts my feelings when there's just frankly false ads running against really good representatives and really good senators that work for the people, not for an agenda. And to say that they're pushing an agenda is completely false.
There's campaigns and then there's campaigns, and the amount of vitriol and mistruths that have been pushed out on this topic has been amazing. And so thanks for going on the record.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I will tell you, if you look at what was pushed in Congress, and if you look at what my Democrat colleagues have said, they've made it very clear what they want to do. They want to have abortion on demand. They want to have abortion up to the moment of conception. They want to have taxpayer-funded abortions. They want to have, sexual selection abortions, racial selection abortions. That's what they want to do. They've made it very clear by vetoing legislation in Raleigh. They made it very clear on the national scene on bills they put forward. And so they've made it very clear that they want this agenda that, frankly, the majority of North Carolinians and, frankly, the majority of most Americans do not support. The Democrat side has made it very clear what they want to do. The Republican side does not have an agenda, has not even had the discussion yet within our caucus. And it will be one that we will have when we get back into Raleigh, but there's no hidden agenda on the abortion side.
And we're going to bring you and Michael Lee back on board when you folks start talking about that, because it is an important issue, and we do need to talk about it.
And it's an issue that not only it divides caucuses, so we'll have different views and opinions on the Republican side. We'll have different views and opinions on the Democrat side. We have pro-life Democrats as well. And then there'll be different views and opinions from the governor's office and also the Senate chamber. And so to say that there is this hidden agenda to push a narrative that frankly doesn't exist is completely false. And I'm disappointed that the governor would even jump on a TV ad to push that agenda against a senator who has worked as hard as Michael Lee has for the folks of Southeastern North Carolina, who's a great member of the North Carolina General Assembly and who serves the people that he represents, not an agenda.
Now, you're in the House, and so what are North Carolinians concerned about? We've talked about abortion, but what are you hearing as you go about talking to people? What's first and foremost on people's minds?
First and foremost, every event we go to, every person I talk to, the text messages, the emails, the phone conversations, economy. We're seeing gas start ticking back up. What the Biden administration has done to our energy efforts here in the country is just upsetting. When you look at almost a depleted strategic reserve that is there for our national security, they're going to deplete it. When they're working with communist countries to try to bring in oil and gas into our country instead of tapping into the reserves that we have, that is not only environmentally irresponsible, but it's also a threat to our national security. When people go to the grocery store and you have milk $5-6 a gallon, when they go in to buy groceries and they don't get what they want, they have to get what's there. When you go in and you can't find blueberry Pop-Tarts, when you go in and can't find Jif peanut butter, when you go in and on your way there, you have to stop and get $5 gas. That's what's on people's mind when everything you deal with day in and day out has increased at a minimum of 10% or more. I saw a statistic, I believe it was last week, that said the average North Carolinian is paying almost $700 to $800 more a month in basic supplies than they were even a year ago.
700
people's mind.
$700 to $800 more a month just for basic goods.
Yes, sir. When you look at a grocery bill, go to the grocery store right now, and what you could buy today is nowhere near what it cost a year ago, a year and a half ago. And when you have a working family like mine, when you have I have a young daughter that's in school. I feel for the families that have 3 and 4 and 5 kids that are taking care of loved ones and are trying to manage this cost because they're getting hit everywhere they go. And this is nothing more than poor fiscal policies, poor decisions made out of our national government. Unfortunately, they've not taken the pathway of North Carolina. We've done great things here in our state to make our state fiscally responsible. We've introduced tax reform. We've introduced regulatory reform. We've done a lot of reforms. We put reserves in place to protect our state. But we're having to deal with a very rogue national government that has flooded our economy with frivolous spending, and they want to continue to do more of it. And that has to stop, or else we will be. I just get stunned when I watch the news. I mean, we've got a vice president that doesn't know the difference between North and South Korea. We've got a president that goes down to Florida where Governor DeSantis has done an outstanding job navigating through a very difficult situation with the hurricane, and who's laughing and joking and making inappropriate comments. We've got a House of Representatives where the Speaker of the House in Washington is not even allowing people to come back in and vote. They're still voting remote.
Wait a minute, they're still voting remote?
Absolutely, they're still voting remote. You've got a dysfunctional government that is completely out of touch with everyday Americans, and it's like the old saying, "The economy's stupid." That's exactly what people are talking about. For every part, I was in the western part of the state earlier this week. They're talking about the economy there. I'm back in eastern North Carolina. We're talking about the economy here, and I think within the next couple of weeks we're going to see gas get back to $4 a gallon, and it just looks like a never-ending cycle.
I used to work in Washington, D.C., and every time I left the Beltway, I could feel my IQ rise. Just because when we talk about the whole idea of Washington, D.C. being out of touch, that's not just blowing smoke. They're out of touch in Washington, D.C., and they really don't even know what's going on, even here close in North Carolina.
If you went to Washington, D.C. today, you would be shocked. Just arriving in the city, I was there a few months back, and the street vendors that were once there are no longer there. The hustle and bustle, population, people still haven't come back to work. People have refused to come back into the city because of crime. It is definitely nothing like what it was when Donald Trump was in office. When Donald Trump was in office, you went to D.C., people were excited to be there. It was a happening place. There were vendors. People were making money. Life was good. And now it's a depressing place to go.
You've talked about fiscal responsibility here in North Carolina and the things that you have done in North Carolina, not just for the last 2 years under President Biden, but even before then, reducing taxes, getting our fiscal house in order. I lived for a while in the great volunteer state of Tennessee, where we had no state income tax. And there are other states across the Southeast that are financially sound that have no state income tax. You've reduced the state income tax here in North Carolina, but what are your future plans for that?
So what we looked at many years ago, and I want to give credit to a number of people that helped make this happen. Senator Tom Tillis, when he was Speaker of the House, took on the endeavor of doing tax reform here in the state. Representative Julia Howard out of Davie County was our finance chair. A number of other people that were involved that helped lead the charge to really take a look at how we do taxes here in North Carolina, because we were one of the top states in the country for highest tax rates. We had the highest tax rate in the Southeast.
Wow.
When you look at companies, they were leaving North Carolina. We had an extremely high corporate tax. And so we reevaluated that. And what you have to do in this process is not do what the state of Kansas did. They just flat out cut taxes. Great idea. But they didn't reduce spending. They didn't do it in a way that is manageable. And so when they did that, they cut taxes, did not cut spending, did not look at regulations, and basically turned their state and spiraled out of control. It was a really bad fiscal situation. In North Carolina, we took a strategic approach. And so we have trigger mechanisms built in. So I believe our tax rate when I first started was 7.75. Today it's around 4. And every time we have a surplus, you see a trigger kick in that cuts the state income tax. And so we're doing it incrementally as we move along. At the same time, the corporate tax is moving to zero. At the same time, there's no frivolous spending in our state. So spending is under control. Cuts are made when needed. And also at the same time, it's very hard to do a tax reform when you do not do regulatory reform at the same time. You have to cut out the senseless regulations. And so we've done a meaningful, measured approach on how we address all those. And the result is what you see today. You see a booming economy. You see our state income tax continue to reduce. Our goal is to get it to zero. It's going to be very strategic in how we do that, because if we do hit a recession, I believe we're in a recession now, but our friends in Washington have changed the definition, so we'll see what that. But I mean, when we do hit a recession, our state will be prepared. And so, if we do not have surpluses in our budget, we will not lower taxes. So we're actually moving in an incremental direction to get it to zero, so it's sustainable. The last thing you want to do is drastically reduce taxes and not be able to cover the expenses and the costs of running the state. So it's a very meaningful, measured, responsible approach. I like the direction we're going, and people will continue seeing that those trigger mechanisms kick in. And our state is now the number one state to do business. We've got moving trucks moving in. You all have experienced that in New Hanover County. Mm-hmm. It's a popular place to be. I'm a UNCW graduate. I get down there as much as I can. People love coming down to southeastern North Carolina. People are moving into our state. Company announcements every week are happening in North Carolina, and we want to keep up that effort. We believe that if people have more money in their pocket, they have a better idea of how they want to spend their funds than the government does.
It's their money.
It is their money.
It's your money.
And the money that government receives from the people needs to be spent in a responsible, meaningful, measured way that benefits all the people. And you've seen us really do that, especially in the last couple of years where we invested in tremendous amounts of infrastructure. Those are long-lasting projects: water, sewer, broadband connectivity down in New Hanover County. You've seen a tremendous effort put in to the ports, to education, and those are meaningful projects that affect all North Carolinians and are actually long-term projects that could go 30 and 40 years out.
The things that we talked about as I introduced you, things like better jobs, empowering students and family through education, fiscal responsibility, these are all traditional Republican ideas, but in the last couple of years, we have seen those ideals resound with a greater demographic, is that people are latching onto those ideas. Even people who have never been affiliated with the Republicans, they are seeing that. Why is that going on? What is happening?
Well, for me, I think you've got a great awakening of what's going on. You've got a party out of Washington, D.C. that is completely detached from everyday Americans. To me, this is nothing new. I grew up with, if you had $5 and something cost $6, you didn't buy it. The math didn't work. And I grew up in a household that my mother and father expected me to work. And even when I was unable to have a job at a young age, I had chores at the house I had to do. I had responsibilities. If I wanted lunch for school fixed during the week, I had two working parents. I had to make my own lunch. If I wanted my clothes washed, I had to get that done. And so my parents instilled in me a hard work ethic. which later on in life I learned the hard way. I had a really good time my first year at UNCW and came back home and had to work in the tobacco field, and it was my choice to either I continue working in that field or go make something of myself. So I chose to go back to school and focus on my grades. But this is what everyday North Carolinians face, and they see it in their household incomes, their household budgets. They know what they can afford and what they can't afford. And when you're seeing policies that from a party that are just so out there, it's not everything now on the Democrat side is either race baiting or identity politics. I mean, when you have a member that's going to be on our United States Supreme Court that can't define what a woman is, when you look at the indoctrination and the issues that are being forced upon our kids in our schools, when you look at the ridiculous amount of frivolous spending that's been thrown out there, there's repercussions to all this. And the average person is now waking up. They understand, especially coming out of COVID, where you had a rogue government come in and try to shut everything down. I believe in Hanover County, you even had business owners that were arrested and charged for trying to operate their businesses. People don't support that. And coming out of COVID, everyday parents got to see what was happening in our classrooms and see what was going on through digital learning, and the fact that we had labor unions trying to keep our schools shut down to try that was harming our kids. And so you're seeing this great awakening. People are aware of what's going on in our county commission. They're aware of what's going on in our city councils. They're absolutely aware of what's going on in our school boards now, and they're paying attention. And I tell people as Republicans, for many years, we went to work, we raised our families, we did what we were supposed to do, we participated in our community. A lot of people didn't focus on politics. And we've allowed people to get into politics that, frankly, are pushing an agenda, not the best interest of the people they serve. And I told you earlier, I don't like being called a politician. I'm a public servant. I serve at the will of the public. They are my boss, whether they're Republican, Democrat, unaffiliated, vote or not vote. Those are the people that I answer to every day when I'm in Raleigh. And we have a huge number of people that are stepping up to the plate to be public servants, and that's going to be the difference this election.
We have a Democrat governor. We do have a majority in North Carolina of Republicans, but we need a larger majority. We're sending two folks back up your way. Well, we want to resend Ted Davis, but we've got two great candidates down here. Tell me about them, and why is it important that we get more Republicans into that legislature?
Well, we've done a really good job of recruiting candidates that reflect the interests of the areas. And so when you look at down in New Hanover County, Ted Davis served on the county commission. He understands the community. I believe Ted was born and raised there, a longtime business leader, very active in the community. He understands the needs of New Hanover County, and he's done an outstanding job, even having to go against some of our folks in the party with the film tax credits and issues that are important to New Hanover County. Ted has stood there in the gap and fought for his constituents. He needs to come back to Raleigh. He does an outstanding job. He's our head of judiciary chair, a very important position in the House, and he represents his community well. Charlie Miller is a young gun. He doesn't have any opposition. Coming out of Brunswick County, has a small piece of New Hanover County, but Charlie has really hit the ground running, has jumped in. He comes from a law enforcement and school board background. Those are vital to the decisions that we'll be making moving forward. When you look at the efforts from the other side to indoctrinate our classrooms, to defunding the police, it's nice to have somebody there that understands the day in and day out repercussions of their ridiculous policies. Then you've got probably one of the better candidates that we've recruited all across the state in John Hennett. Man, what a fireball. John is working hard. I'm on a text message chain with John. He's sending me updates. I watched I believe it was the Chamber of Commerce briefing, the Leaders Forum he did. He was sharp. He knew the issues. He knew what was going on in the community, whether it be downtown, whether it be out in the county. He understood the issues affecting the ports, the film industry, the university, our school system. Really, really dynamic individual, and he's going to give his opponent, Deb Butler, a run for her money. It's interesting. I get to see some of the ads that come through, and some of these extreme liberal Democrats now are running ads that make them sound like Republicans. And it was very interesting. I saw an ad that popped up where I believe Representative Butler talked about working across the aisle, and and, and being kind and being nice, because we're all in this together. And I'm sort of thinking, she made her name by screaming and yelling on the House floor. She's never voted for anything bipartisan, refuses to work with us. I don't even know if she's even supported a budget. I have to go back and look at her voting record. But her voting record is day in and day out progressive liberal Democrat. And to see her running ads trying to portray that she's a moderate is completely false. And John's brought that to the surface about, hey, we need somebody that's going to work for all people, not just a small segment of the population. And so he's a great candidate. I think that race is going to be a whole lot closer than what people think. And it's my hope, and we're investing in that race, and we're working hard with John and Ted to get them both across the finish line. And then you've got a really good friend of mine, Senator Michael Lee. Man, what a dynamic individual. I've known Michael for a long time. And matter of fact, his wife is from the Kinston area, which I used to represent over in Lenore County. And so we've become really good friends. Michael is a outstanding senator. He's an independent thinker. He works hard. You see him day in and day out trying to balance a private sector job, serving his community, and helping support his family. And so he puts a lot of time, energy, and effort into making sure that his constituents are heard. And so Southeastern North Carolina is very blessed by the representation that they have. And the fact that you have an opportunity to pick up a gentleman by the name of John Hennett really could make a dynamic group down there in Hanover County.
John Hennett has been out knocking on doors. I think he's worn out.
He's a machine. I wish I had some of his energy. As you can tell during the interview, well, I've done so much talking and back and forth across the state, I've lost part of my voice. Whenever John's drinking in the morning, he is on the go day in and day out, and he is actually raised the bar for our candidates down that way, and so I'm excited about what he's doing.
I think he's on his fifth pair of sneakers. I think he's worn out so many going out and talking to people.
But you know what? That's what you want. You want somebody that is going to knock on doors, that's willing to go talk to the people they represent, that is saying, hey, look, this is where we're at. I'm providing an alternate solution to better our community. That is no different than what we did in 2010 when we took the majority. We said, look, this state's been under Democrat control for 130 plus years. Just give us a chance. Just give us a chance, and we can show you what the conservative Republicans can do. And I'm proud to say that our state's better off. The numbers are what the numbers are. The numbers show that our state is better off than we were 12 years ago under Democrat control when Beverly Perdue was governor, and you had two supermajorities of Democrats in both House and Senate.
North Carolina House Majority Leader John Bell, you're not running for re-election in our area.
I am running for re-election. We run every 2 years. It feels like we run every year and a half. For the first time in 8 years, I do not have any opposition, which is nice.
Nice.
But I do have a responsibility to do everything I can to help get Republicans elected across the state. We've got a great leadership team. I look at, I'll just tell you, Ted Davis is a part of that team. Charlie Miller is a part of that team on the House. You've got Representative Jimmy Dixon, which covers Duplin and Onslow County right now, is part of that team. Representative Jason Sain, Representative Destin Hall, Representative Brendan Jones, a tremendous group of folks all across the state. Representative Sarah Stevens, Representative Steve Tyson over in Craven County, Representative Matthew Winslow over in Franklin County. We've even got the lone Republican in Wake County, Representative Aaron Paré, stepping up to the plate. We've got a lot of people working as hard as they can to get Republicans elected. The Speaker and I have been crisscrossing the state. He's been a dynamic cheerleader for us. And I was talking with him this morning. We were raising money first thing this morning at 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'm going after it. And so it's going to be a great November 8th for us. I know I'm ready for it to be over with like most everybody. But we got a few more days and a couple of weeks left before early voting. So we just need to go ahead and work as hard as we can and do everything we can to raise the funds to get these folks across the finish line. And I'll just tell your listeners and viewers, and these races are expensive. We have one race in the state that we've budgeted $906,000 for. And so almost $1 million for a House seat. And two of those expensive races on the House side are going to be right there in New Hanover County. And, New Hanover County is going to be the difference in our statewide elections.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the 2 seats on the state Supreme Court and the seats up on the Court of Appeals, New Hanover County is going to be the difference. And we need folks in New Hanover County to turn out. We need folks in all 100 counties to turn out and vote for the conservatives on the state Supreme Court that are running. They're actually judges that follow the rule of law and follow the Constitution as written. You've seen what's happening. Our state Supreme Court is going rogue, pushing an agenda. The voters of the state clearly said that they wanted voter ID law. They wanted it in their Constitution. And we've got 4 extreme liberals on our state Supreme Court that have said, you know what, we know better than the hundreds of thousands of voters here in the state. And it's time to stop that. We need to put people on the court that follow the rule of law, that do not push an agenda, and follow our Constitution as written. And you've got 2 outstanding candidates, and Richard Deese and Trey Allen, that will do just that. We can pick up more seats on the state Court of Appeals, which we will do. We've got, you've got Congressman Rouser running for re-election down that way. David's done an outstanding job. He was my senator when I first started in politics. I'm a state senator. And then we got opportunity to, and frankly, got opportunity to pick up the majority in the United States Senate with Ted Bell on the ballot. So there's a lot of things at the national level that are very important. But I also know that most important in New Hanover County, I see the blogs, I see what's going on. But folks, after you vote for the courts and after you vote for the folks running statewide, your local elections, county commissioner, school board, we really need people to step up. We've got great people down there running for office and want to stand up not just for the kids, but also for working families and families in general. And they need your support as well. So it's a full court press from now to November the 8th. And I believe we're going to have a great election, and we're going to see major change throughout our state.
I'll tell you what, I've been doing this for a long time, and people think of the grand old party as that tired old party, but we ain't tired. And
no, we're not.
We're excited.
And when we were recruiting candidates, I kept on hearing, and I'll just be blunt here. You are nothing but a bunch of old white guys. And I'm like, look, first of all, I'm not old. Second of all, the candidates that we recruited resemble their communities. We have the most diverse slate of candidates that we've ever had. And I challenge our candidate recruitment to anybody across the country. We've got people that are putting their personal lives and business lives aside, saying, "Hey, it's time to step up and run." And they're from all backgrounds, all different races, all different ways of life, who are stepping up and running for office. Just the right thing to do. And I couldn't be prouder of the House candidates that have put their name on the line and are running for office today.
Leader John Bell, how can they get in touch with you?
Our office is always open. Just please reach out to us online, social media channels. We try to manage all that one. My communications director tells me I can't touch Twitter or social media because I messed it up. So everything goes through him. But our office is pretty open. If anybody needs anything, we try to help direct them to the right place. And so we're here to serve the public, regardless of if you're in the district, outside the district, whether you vote for me or not vote for me. We're here to serve you because that's our job.
Sure do appreciate you being here. We could sit and talk all day, but you've got things to do. We got folks to go out and talk to. John, thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you very much. Enjoyed it.